Our wide receiver rankings for the 2025 NFL Draft are coming your way today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase.
Joe, happy wide receiver day here on the show, doing deep dives on the top of the class. The top of the class, I'm using air quotes here because if you stack some of the positions that we've already done and then you put the wide receivers into it, how's this for selling a show right in the first minute and a half? Not too many wide receivers going to be at the top of the class when it's all said and done, which probably doesn't help the macro perception of the draft class as a whole.
Correct. Two prevailing thoughts on this wide receiver class. The first one being there's good players. I think there's just a lot of specialization with the types of receivers. So just depending on what you're looking for, you can find it. I'm not sure there's like a ton of just do everything type guys. And the second prevailing thought that I have, as I've spent a lot of time watching receivers over the last couple of days, is boy, these guys got to be excited to get to the NFL and get some real quarterbacks throwing them the ball, man. Holy smokes. We have lost it in college football with these guys that are throwing the ball, man. These throws are just nowhere in the zip code a lot of times. The reads, the decision-making is just deplorable, to be honest with you, with a lot of these guys.
So let's do the run through of some of the names, right, of schools and their subsequent quarterbacks, right? Like Ohio State had Will Howard, who's a middle tier
college quarterback
in this year's class. It's if you told me he was, despite what you see from some outlets looking to maybe drum up some conversational talking points that suggest, will Will Howard go on day 2 or in the second round? Will Howard go top? I like Will Howard as like a 5th round quarterback, right? Same for Quinn Ewers, Texas, right? Like that's the stratosphere of range that I think is appropriate, regardless of what maybe the mock draft projection is for Quinn Ewers based off of how many stars he had coming out of high school. But then like Arizona.
I hate that guy's decision-making. Whoever that quarterback is, I hate his decision-making.
Missouri.
Brady Cook. It was the end of a game. They were getting blown out. Oh gosh. What player was it? I wasn't watching Luther Burden. I was watching a defensive player this week, and I'm like, this guy's throwing some ropes here at the end of the game. And then I went back and kind of looked. I was like, there's some moments here with this guy. And then I don't think is he a prospect? Is he eligible? Is he in this class?
Brady Cook is in this class. Yes, he's my lowest graded quarterback.
Good.
14 guys I did. 15 guys I did.
There was some game they were getting smoked, and he did cool stuff at the end. So I'll say that about him.
Iowa State's got 2 wide receivers. Is Anthony Bech's son, I believe, is the quarterback there.
I feel like I take the least exception with him so far of the quarterbacks we've discussed.
TCU's got 2 wide receivers in this class.
Yeah, and they sometimes throw the ball.
Maryland's got 2 wide receivers in this class.
I only watched one of them, though.
Syracuse with Kyle McCord.
Yeah.
And Colorado's got a number of wide receivers, but none of the wide receivers really, other than Travis Hunter, felt like they were in that stratosphere.
I really feel like Colorado's lacking talent collectively. Like their trench players are just they don't look right to me.
Still a work in progress.
It really is. Yeah, those guys they're not up to speed yet.
They hit the portal heavy, and then they've started to kind of get some players in that are recruits, but it's a matter of that that talent development now that they're starting to get the talent. But you could tell they're an incomplete team.
Yeah.
So shall we? Wide receivers?
Let's do it.
Kind of tease a little bit. I did reveals first yesterday, so I feel like you
I I wish today was your day to go first. Okay. I have 2 true first round grades and then
Okay.
1, 2. I'll give you those 3 players. And I'm going to sound like a liar, but my number 1 receiver is Tet McMillan out of Arizona. After I've been a champion for Matthew Golden. Matthew Golden is my number 2 receiver. I do have a first round grade on him out of Texas. And then I have a 1-2 on Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. So those would be my top 3. I think there's a line in the sand for me where there's a bit of a drop off. Those are my 3 favorite receivers in the class.
We are openly acknowledging if Travis Hunter's wide receivers.
Yeah. Travis Hunter.
He's not classified for me because I have him down as a corner as well.
Yeah.
But
okay.
I'm sitting here thinking like we should probably at least mention
Sure.
the name Travis Hunter in the event that he gets drafted by a team that wants to play wide receiver.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the same top 3, just in different order with marginally different valuations, but all 3 of these players are in my top 32 on my overall big board.
Okay.
So I have late 1, early 2s on 4 wide receivers.
Okay.
But the top 3 that you mentioned are the 3 that are in the top 32 in my actual big board rankings. I have Emeka Egbuka at number 1. Feel really comfortable. I think that's why.
Okay.
Like I know what I'm gonna get with
Sure.
Emeka Egbuka.
It's fair.
Matthew Golden is my wide receiver 2. He actually is tied from a number and scale perspective to Egbuka. So I just went with the player that I think is a little bit more of a clean overall projection with Egbuka at 1. And then I have Tet McMillan as my 3rd wide receiver. He is a half a point behind the top 2 guys in front of him. So those 3 are all very, very close. And then I do have Luther Burden in the late 1, early 2. He comes in 36th on the board. So that's my top 4. And those guys are all guys that kind of have, for me, that argument for top 32 profiles.
Let me explain why I stacked mine the way that I did.
Very interested in why you stacked yours the way that you did.
Yeah, I had to come to something that I felt was I could buy into. Because I think my favorite player is still Matthew Golden. But the reason I put Tet McMillan number 1 is because I think he's the player in this group that gives me the most likely path to having a volume piece of an offense that like you could probably build a lot of your passing game through targeting Tet McMillan. And so I think that's what pushed me into him. I think Matthew Golden, I don't think he's going to be a number 1 receiver. I think he's like a Tyler Lockett type where if you have the right number 1, I think he could be a really good like secondary piece to it. But it's like it's the field stretching dynamics with him that get me very, very excited. But do I love the idea of him as like a 120 target guy? I don't know that would be the best thing for him. So I love what he does. I just don't know that there's a volume piece there like there could be for Tet McMillan. And Kyle, I agree with you. There was a point in time where I was going through this. I was like, is Egbuka going to be my number 1 receiver? And I agree that there's a comfort level there. I think there's a Robert Woods type profile with this player. But I still think that he's a guy that is going to be best from the slot. That's going to be more of a short to intermediate target. And the vertical component doesn't exist there quite as much with him, which is the lowest usage of any receiver, right? So I don't want to major and minoring, but just in terms of, okay, the role, I felt like it was the least valuable of the 3. So that's kind of how I landed in the order that I did.
See, I feel like Egbuka can be a volume player for a passing offense. Now, he's not going to be the X. And if that's what, like, is that where you are with Tet? Is you feel like I can put Tet as the X receiver and put him in isolation and he can win with physicality and he's got enough route running, upside and body control? Like, is that how you settled there?
Yes, but I also think that I need the right other players, right? Like to maximize.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, I'd love for these guys to be my top. Like if I can have a top 3, if it could be McMillan, Golden,
make this the wide receiver room.
This would be the wide receiver room. And I think they would need each other. That's where I don't think I don't think any one of these guys is like, oh man, you know, we got this guy, like we're set. This is our true guy for our offense. I think they're going to need pieces around them to really, like, they're not scheme proof. They're not quarterback proof. They're not rest of supporting cast proof at all.
So I want to get a little bit more into Tet because he's obviously become a super polarizing player, but I also know we need to get a break.
All right. So we'll do that on the other side of it. Be sure to stick with us. Imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd, and witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person, and getting tickets shouldn't be stressful. That's where Game Time comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. Game Time Picks is the easiest way to find and buy tickets to live events. The curation makes it easier to find better value for tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, and theater events. You get peace of mind. With seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and the lowest price guarantee, you can book with total confidence. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
I'm going to be a little direct here, and I don't want anybody to take it as a personal attack. And I just want to know if you agree with the statement. If you invoke the name Mike Evans when discussing Tetairoa McMillan, like, you should probably just go outside and touch some grass, right? Like,
yeah, I think that's inappropriate.
Correct. And I say that to make the point about what the reservation that I have is with Tet about even being the X in the way that you talked about. I'm just a little worried about there being enough explosiveness to command enough space. And he's not Mike Evans with how he plays with physicality, right?
Yeah.
So you get out of the Big 12 and you get into the end. Like, I just feel like that can be kind of a tough transition without having the explosive respect vertically down the field type of respect that you could command if you had the kind of speed that Matthew Golden has, or that Jaylen Noel ran in the 4.3s is just like the next name down that I'm seeing that is like, I know a fast guy, and I know they're very different body types, but that's the part with me for Tet. Like, and again, I have him graded in top 32. I have a late 1, early 2 grade on him. I like him as a player. But my concern about playing him as a player who plays in isolation as the X and on the line of scrimmage and playing through contact is there has to be a vertical fear that you can instill to be really effective in that role. And I don't know that he has it. So that means when he first gets into the league, how does he successfully navigate through contact in the contact window? How does he successfully get off contact at the top of route stems? Because he doesn't have the Mike Evans physicality that Mike leans on to have that success with that as a guy that ran in the 4.5s.
Yeah, and I think even the release package is going to be really different, how he's going to get off press.
Yeah.
I mean, day one, I'm sure guys are going to be in his face, and he's going to have to prove that, and we'll find out. I mean, he's
like
so much
player.
better with off-man coverage. Yeah.
I like the player, but I want the full context out there just because I
get it.
That
I get
comment can get interpreted as a hater comment, and that's not the case.
No, it's just I hope anybody that listens to this podcast who just only hopes for us to do research and study and then tell you how we feel and be honest about it. Like,
I still get no context screenshots of stuff from my program that gets put out, and then people get all mad about that.
That's silly. I mean, I hope that nobody listens to any of my work with the hopes of just agreeing with everything I say. I hope that you just value my process and want me to just tell you how I feel.
Yeah. And then have a curiosity to explore it for yourself and not be afraid of the conversation. That's the best part of it, right?
Right. Like, people are so afraid to disagree. It's like, I don't know. You and I just disagreed on the rankings. We could find the common ground. Like, it's okay. It's okay.
I want to know where the big deviation is going to happen with this group.
I'm sure it's about to when we get beyond the top 3, because I mean, I did not have an easy time stacking this. I think it's so much easier when you do it for just a specific team.
Where do you have Luther Burden, who's my 4 with a late 1 or late 2?
5. I have him 5 with a second round grade. Yeah.
Okay. So you want to give me everything you have through the second round?
Yep. So these are all my 2s. I'll give you my 2-3 as well. So wide receiver 4, second round grade. Can't quit him. Elik Ayomanor out of Stanford. Number 5 is Luther Burden out of Missouri. Number 6 is Jake Bech out of TCU. Jack, sorry. Yep. And I'm looking at Jack and I said Jake, sorry. And then I have a 2-3. And I'm interested in how you foil this guy against Tet. My wide receiver 7 with the 2-3 is Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State.
Okay. This is fun. So my wide receiver 4 is Luther Burden, who we mentioned. My wide receiver 5 is Eligai Minor.
Oh, I didn't know you were going to land there. Okay.
I had him flip flop from you, so 4
right.
and 5 we're close. Wide receiver 6 for me is Jaden Higgins from Iowa State.
All right.
I have a firm 2 on him. I have Jack Bech as wide receiver 7. And then I have Jaylen Noel from Iowa State, also with a second-round grade as wide receiver 8.
He's my highest 3, is Jaylen.
Okay.
Noel, by the way. Yeah.
Noel. So we are...
We have the same 8 players.
So maybe we're not going to get any fun discourse today. But Higgins.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a lot more of an acceleration down the field, linear plane explosiveness with him? I mean, with a similar size profile, with more length and catch radius than Ted? Yeah, like, do we need to have this conversation?
I think he's got a better release package. I think he's more fluid and twitchy at the top of the route. Now, I don't know that I want to have that conversation.
Who's better on the horizontal plane?
Ted.
That would, I think, was a big separator. That would be a big point for me. And I think Ted's probably better in contested situations as well.
Yeah, I think one of the things that really was frustrating about the Higgins tape for me was he was a lot more open early in reps and the ball was not there on time.
Yeah.
And it pulled him into contested situations. And I don't think he played like a 94th percentile height player with a 91st percentile wingspan. I'm like, dude, you have the potential to really dominate that space. And I think it's absolutely fair to say Tet McMillan's comfortably better in those situations with the angles he takes at the catch point to extend and attack the football. And some of that probably has to do with what Higgins has 9 1/8 hands. So he doesn't have big hands. Yeah. And I think sometimes that kind of shows in how he addresses the ball at the catch point too.
Yeah, it's interesting. I did agree. Once we started to get into this, I was like, I think that he does have a little bit more of that vertical push, a little bit more of the like linear plane suddenness, working back down stem. But then I think, the separators would be that with Tet McMillan.
I think he's a more well-rounded player, but the player that I think some people want to invoke with Tet McMillan is the big play down the field type guy. I think Higgins is a better version of that.
Yeah, I
part
agree.
Of the position.
I agree. You have Jaylen Noel in this bucket, and I sort of do. He's really fascinating to me. Have you ever seen a slot receiver with like that much vertical opportunity? He killed like the space. Like we talk about playing in the slot and like you have a two-way go. I don't think I've seen a team quite take advantage of the vertical opportunities that exist from the slot quite like Iowa State did with Jaylen Noel. Like this dude was getting behind everybody, and I thought it was because of the space afforded to him was crazy. And it's like, why are more teams not taking advantage of this? Like that running seam routes with their slot receiver, this guy was eating it up in a big way. I mean, big plays for sure. And there's like a fearless nature of the way that he plays the game that I really appreciated as well.
Yeah. And one thing that stood out at the Senior Bowl for him too, was seeing him up close and in person, both him and Restrepo. Both of those guys are really thick. So Jaylen is pushing 200 pounds, but he's 5'10". Mm-hmm. He's like 5'10" and a quarter and is about like 200, 195. And that you see that. And I think as a player who that helps with his change of direction ability with hard angled routes, I think it helps him with contact balance. I think it helps him kind of play through some contact down the field. He was 13 of 25 in contested situations this year. And some of that goes back to like the athletic profile that he has as a guy. It's 41.5-inch vert with the 4.39. This is not your typical, he's built like Restrepo, but he runs like a perimeter player, not like a heavy-footed slot guy who wins because there's more space available and he finds vacated space.
Yeah.
So it would not surprise me, Joe, depending on where Noel ends up, if he's not one of the most productive players in this wide receiver class in the first couple of years, just because I think there is a greater menu for usage for him that also goes with kind of a unique athletic profile that can kind of set him apart.
I like him. He's very, very interesting. I might have to give him a 2-3, bump him up a little bit.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah. All right. We will get into our next group, third round grades, maybe sneak into some fourth round as well. Folks, be sure to stick with us. I need to tell you about
Jack Bech and how much you like him.
Sure. I would love to do that. But my daughter, who is 5, she's now acquainted with April Fool's Day.
Oh no.
Yeah. So she's also made this April Fool's month. So we, head on a swivel in the Marino household. But I didn't know that she knew anything about April Fool's Day. So she comes home from preschool on April 1st. And I already told you that I got by the soap thing in the email. So I didn't get got. Okay. But my daughter, she was outside. We were playing outside. She goes inside for a couple minutes. Then she comes back out and she goes, Daddy, I just got off the phone with Uncle Kyle. And he said that he doesn't want to record any more podcasts with you.
How long did she string that out, or was it just kind of one and done?
What do you?
Did she keep it going for a while?
No. Did she?
She's right away.
Yeah, right away. Yeah, so she's got to work on the execution.
Joke.
Yeah. She was so excited about it. But that's the first April Fool's joke that my daughter played on me. So
that's good.
There we go.
Very funny.
Yeah. Okay. So we got to get. You want to talk about Jack Bech, or you want to get to this next
a little bit? I would like to. Yeah. I really like Jack Bech. I think he's, if you've followed and consumed draft content throughout the course of the cycle, and you've kind of heard the story of Bech as a player, originally went to LSU and was on the LSU 2021 team as a true freshman and had almost 500 yards of offense or 500 receiving yards on that roster. And Joe, that roster of wide receivers included Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, Keyshawn Butte. Let's see, is it forgetting anybody else? Trey Palmer was on that roster. And then Jack Bech at wide receiver. Significant NFL talent. And you know who the most productive freshman player out of the group was?
Who?
It was Jack Bech.
All right.
Right? So physical, blocks his rear end off. He's got some of the best hands in the class.
Yeah.
He catches really everything. He has 4 career drops. 4 career drops. And that's across 200 targets. So you're getting a player that I think has inside, outside capability. He was predominantly a slot player at TCU before this year. And then in his true freshman season, he was a slot player as well. Doesn't have great speed, but if you're looking for somebody who runs good routes, can win through contact, plays with physicality, can contribute on the perimeter in the passing game, can get down and block on nickels and safeties and linebackers, has good ball skills down the field, even if he doesn't have good vertical speed down the field.
He's a really savvy player.
It's all here, man. Yeah, it's all here.
He's an A+ dude as well, right?
Yes.
I thought he was like a very savvy player. Spatial awareness, good feel for what's going on, where to be, way to be quick quarterback friendly. He'll be around for a while. I'm sure of that.
And above the 70th percentile for 3-cone drill. This is a wide receiver that ran the 3-cone drill at the combine.
Yeah, shout out.
That in and of itself is a rarity.
Well, and blame the world for the way they reacted to DK Metcalf's 3-cone and short shuttle. Now no one will ever do it. So,
well, Jack Bech did it, and he ran a 6.84 3-cone as a 250-pound wide receiver. Broad jump was 10.5, which is 74th percentile, and he put up 19 on the bench press, which is 83rd percentile. So this is a big rocked up dude that has change of direction ability and sufficient down the field speed. all around player, super easy to like. I think he continues to be slept on in the class, but not by this program because I got him 53rd overall in a second round grade.
I don't know where he is overall, but he is a wide receiver 6 in the second round grade for me.
Okay.
All right. The third round grades for me, Jaylen Noel might be a 2-3 now.
Yep.
Ty Felton, wide receiver Maryland, is my wide receiver 9, third round grade. Wide receiver 10, third round grade, Isaiah Bond out of Texas. Wide receiver 11, third round grade, Jaylen Royals out of Utah State.
A good player.
And then the rest are, the rest of the guys I did. I have a 3-4 on Kyle Williams out of Washington State, 3-4 on Trey Harris out of Ole Miss, and a 4 on Savion Williams from TCU.
Okay. Savion's was a really popular name a couple months ago and really intriguing player from a height, weight, speed perspective.
All the physical stuff. Yeah. Got to learn how to play, right?
So my 3s are Trey Harris, Ole Miss, Jaylen Royals, Utah State, Savion Williams, TCU, and Ty Felton.
Man, not a whole lot of variance here. We see this pretty similarly.
Yeah, and then I had Isaiah Bond as a early 4 as well.
He's tough, man, because there's a lot of likable skill, separation quickness, a vertical component, yards after catch, creativity, good hands. But then, I think he doesn't. He's 5'11", 180, and I think he kind of plays small. I hate him away from the ball. When he's late in the progression, the route running effort is not there. He's not going to block anybody. So, there's definitely some missing things to the profile there. But
that's also a player that I think the more you talk to people around the program,
very concerning. Yeah,
you don't get positive feedback in the way that you would want, especially contrasted to names like you mentioned, Jack Bech, as an example. There's a big divider where Royals is more, or Bond is a more physically gifted player.
Mm-hmm.
I would take Jack Bech with the higher draft pick 12 times out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Every single time.
Yeah.
Trey Harris, I know you want get a little something off your chest here, or?
I mean, I didn't like him as much as some people. I've seen some late first round mocks with him in it, or early second round. It's gonna be a different game for him. I feel like I say that about everybody at Ole Miss, but I think he makes good ball adjustments. He's a glider down the field. I think he can beat zone coverage, but I think the route tree is really limited here. I really didn't like his hands, to be honest with you. I thought he had some goofy drops. And I think there's NFL route concepts and passing game stuff is just going to be so different for him.
Mm-hmm.
And did he ever play anything besides on the right side? Did he move around at all?
Actually, I can tell you that. Give me a moment.
Felt like he was always in the same spot. So I think there's a big adjustment. And then I don't know that he's quite the athlete.
He ran a 4.54.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't know that. But yeah, for a guy that's supposedly a height, weight, speed guy down the field, I was I'm not sure. So not in. I'm not in on Trey Harris.
Yeah, kind of physically profiles somewhat similar to I'm looking at the mock draftable page. I think there's some fair physical profile stuff to Keon Coleman. I see some Devontae Parker in his game as well.
Cool. Our favorite players on our favorite teams. It's great.
Yeah, well, everything with Devontae Parker was a contested catch, right? And that's as he dealt with the perpetual hamstring issues. The 4.45 or whatever it was that he ran when he came out of Louisville was not the speed that he was running.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of see that with Trey Harris, where if you're going to play back shoulders, if you're going to play vertical stuff down the field, and he's going to win with physicality, but he's going to elevate because he's got leaping ability and he's got the ability to go up above the rim and attack the ball in the air. That's where I think the best recipe for success is for Trey Harris as a player. Because you mentioned kind of the offensive stuff there, and he played at La Tech for 3 years before he transferred to Ole Miss, and he was on a monster pace for production this year before he ended up getting injured. But I think it's a role specific kind of player, and it's a power power perimeter player who wins because of chemistry and timing at the catch point is, I think, where he's going to be most successful.
Yeah, just a tough way to make a living, man.
Yeah. I do want to give my flowers to a day 3 sleeper who's like an all-time RAS warrior, who has some of the blocking parallels to like a Jack Bech or an Elik Iomanor, and it's Isaac Tesla from Arkansas. Joe 603.5, 214, ran a 4.43 with a 39.5-inch vert and a 10.9 broad and a 6.85 3-cone drill and a 4.05 short shuttle. He played at Arkansas. I have a 4 on him. He was targeted 36 times last year. Averaged 19 yards a catch on 28 receptions. Predominantly a big slot player, but he will block you to the moon. And he's explosive. He's physical. You want to take a mid-round flyer on a guy that you get him into not the Arkansas offense. And he did several years of JUCO at Hillsdale before transferring to Arkansas. He's a big-time athlete who is I want to get my hands on that guy if I'm a coach. But underdeveloped as a route runner, lived in the slot, so not used to like having to win against the contact window and had a lot of space naturally. And obviously it's a run-heavy offense, so they took advantage of that and how they got him out of space. So he ends up being my wide receiver 13, my highest 4th-round grade, just behind Ty Felton, who had a 3. But I wanted to give a little flowers to him since we're talking wide receivers here.
I like the shout out, man. This is those guys as a wide receiver 4-5 initially to play special teams. It's going to get you a jersey. Yeah. It's important.
That's going to do it for us here today on Locked On NFL Scouting. Kyle Crabbs, Joe Marino. We have takes on takes coming your way tomorrow. Joe's going to solicit the takes on X, so you can look for them there. And once they drop, give us your hottest take, and we'll react to the best ones tomorrow on the show. Hope you guys enjoyed. You keep locked in right here on Locked On NFL Scouting. Make it a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you all again tomorrow.